So hi everyone, we're here today with Peter Khoury, who we haven't heard from for quite a while. And Peter became well known in the Australian UFO community when he had an interesting experience in 1992. So welcome Peter, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
And before that incident in 1992, which was published in the Hair of the Alien book, your family also had a series of unusual experiences too that I was reading about. And even something strange happened with your mum when you were a baby. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a story that really shocked me, because Mum never ever my whole life never ever mentioned it. And being Lebanese Christian Maronite, we never broached the UFO topic. Like, it was something we never ever discussed, or it wasn't a topic anyone talked about at home. And when during 1988, when this really kicked off for me, I thought it was my first experience in 1988. And but then I know something happened to me when I was about 6.5, 7 years old in Lebanon, just about 6 months before we migrated out to Australia in the early 70s. And always thought it was a strange experience. Other kids were with me that experienced it as well, but I never got into the UFO topic. And then when my experience in '88 happened, I had just moved back to my parents' place, and I was living there for probably about 8 months, and I had been away for about 5 years. And I was got back with my high school sweetheart, and we were talking about getting married and that. So I moved back home and settled down and become a good boy. And one night I'm watching TV with my dad, which the movie was probably about 10-15 minutes into the movie. And my brother came out of the bedroom, and he was asleep in my bedroom. It didn't make sense to me at the time, but I didn't question it, because, I didn't mind having my own privacy anyway. My brother came out of my bedroom and said to me, "Can you go watch TV in your bedroom? I want to sleep out here." And he wanted to sleep in the TV room. So I just thought it was silly. So I walked into my room, sat on the bed, and as I went to turn my TV on and put my hands behind my head, crossed my legs, went to lie on the bed, I felt something around the ankles, like, grabbed me. And to me, it felt like it could have been part of the hand between the index finger and the thumb, but it could have been a device, because I felt pins and needles crawl up through my body all the way up the top of my head, and I become paralyzed. Had the full on, what's going on. I've never experienced something like this. And I used to be in martial arts, and I did a lot of, I played sports and did everything. So I was pretty active and mobile, and lying in my bed and not being able to move, paralyzed basically, it frightened the hell out of me. And I started to try to call out to my dad and my brother, who were just in the room next to me. And although I could think about what I wanted to say, I just couldn't get it out there. I didn't have a voice. And I started thinking, I'm paralyzed. Like, my family will walk in the morning and find me in bed and I can't move. I'm going to be in a wheelchair. I wasn't thinking alien. I wasn't thinking anything like that. And as these thoughts are going through my head, I look at the foot of the bed and I notice there's a 3 to 4 foot tall creature, which the best description would be like a gorilla. At the time, my best description was it looked like a gorilla, and it had, the deep set forehead wrinkles and deep set eyes, big lips, wide nose. It had a hood which made the head look probably a lot bigger. Then I noticed 2 on my right side of the bed, so there was 3 in total. And I'm freaking out at this stage, thinking, this is the devil, this is evil, I'm dying, they're taking my soul. And not being able to move probably freaked me out more than what I was looking at. I'm claustrophobic at the best of times, and being restricted just really took a hold on me. And anyway, as I'm stressing out and thinking, I'm dying, this is me dying, and I noticed on the left side of the bed, with the corner of my eye, the only thing I had open were my eyes, and I could move my eyes left to right, but that was it. And I noticed 2 taller, goldish in colour beings. One was male. The one closest to my head was male. The one at my waist was female. And and the male had a surgical mask which sat under his chin. He didn't have it, he wasn't covering his face with it or his mouth, but the female had it across her mouth. And their surgical masks were a lot thinner than ours. Ours are probably the width of your hand. These would have been width of 2 fingers. Now I know that I've had contact with the male at other times, and I assume that's why he wasn't concerned about passing germs or getting germs from me or anything. That's hence he didn't have his mask on. But here I am freaking out 1 minute and trying, thinking I'm dying. This is the devil. This is evil. And then all of a sudden, I look in this being's eyes, and big black eyes, and within seconds, I felt totally calm, and I hear a voice in my head, which more telepathic than hearing voices. And it said, calm down, we're not going to harm you, relax. It'll be like the last time, calm down, we're not going to harm you. And I was thinking to myself instantly, what effing last time are you talking about? What do you mean? And all of a sudden, we're not going to harm you. And then he puts a needle, or what looked to me like a optical fiber tube with a light at the tip of it. And he put it to the top left side of my head, and bang, I black out. That's it. And came to what I thought was about 10, 15 minutes later. I jumped out of bed because I had been fighting this paralysis for so long. When I got my feeling back, my movement, I sprung out of bed so quick, walked into the TV room and tried to wake up my dad, who was the closest to me as I walked through the door. And I couldn't wake him up. And it really scared me because I thought he'd had a heart attack or he's dead, because he just wasn't responding at all. So I turned to my brother, who was sitting in a single chair, and shook him a little bit, tried to wake him, wouldn't wake up. So I slapped him 3 times. And he woke up, and the first thing he said, and he said this in Lebanese and Arabic, I feel like I've been switched off, which didn't register with me at the time, not knowing anything about the topic or the subject. So I said to him, I can't wake up Dad, something's wrong with him. So we both took probably a minute or 2 to wake up my dad. And when he came to, he was just, he looked real, he was switched off as well, I guess, but he just didn't say anything. And then I asked my brother how long it had been since I went to my bedroom, and he said about 10, 15 minutes, which is what I thought. But as we looked at the TV, it was just a blur. The station had actually closed. When I went to my room, it was probably 11:15, and this was now about 2:30, just after 2:30. So a couple of hours had gone by, and I got no explanation for it. But I went and grabbed a glass of water, and I said to my brother, I actually walked into my room and sat it on the bed. And I said to my brother, I said, if I get up in the morning and this glass is here, whatever I experienced must have really happened to me. So in the morning, obviously I get up, the glass of water's there, and I'm thinking, shit, something did happen. Not that I understood what it was. And I had a shower, and as I was drying off, I felt a burning sensation on my right shin. And I had a look, and it was like a bullet hole there. It was like a red, a wound, probably circular wound, about 5 centimeters in diameter, 2 or 3, millimeters in diameter, and 2 or 3 millimeters deep. And it was red raw. It was like you put a cigarette there and let it burn for a minute. It was really painful, and got dressed. 6 hours later, I went to pick up my fiance from work, and as we're driving, I said, look, something happened to me last night. I need to talk to someone about it. So started telling her the story, and I said, yeah, and he put something in my head, injected something in my head, or a needle or something. And as I touched my head, there was dry blood on my fingernail. So she had a closer look. She said, oh my God, you've got like a donut, and it's got a hole in it with blood around it. Maybe you should go see a doctor. And I said, oh yeah, and there was this thing on my leg. And as I lifted my jeans leg up to show her, it was healed. It was red raw. Like, I mean, I can't understand it could have healed so quick, but it was, as you see it now, it's a scar. You can see it. You look at it, you can tell there's a scar there, but it had looked like it had been there for years. And so anyway, I dropped her off, and I went and saw my doctor, who I'd known for about 10 years. And when I walked in there and sat down and told her the story, I said, look, I've got to talk to someone. I may as well tell you as well. She started laughing, which really annoyed me, because there were people in the waiting room who could hear her laughing and probably wondering what was going on. But it just annoyed me. And I said to her, look, if you think I'm crazy, send me to a psychologist, but don't laugh at me. And I never went back to ever see her again. Got a new doctor, but I went on a
Did
sorry.
any of your family have any other markings on their body or that from that evening, or?
Not that I know of. We never looked into that. My brothers weren't, well, my brother and my dad weren't too keen to talk about it even. But when Bill Chalker was researching the book, he went down and spoke to my parents, and my brother never had told me. He mentioned a couple of things briefly, but they just don't talk about it at all. And when my eldest brother, who was present at the time, when Bill spoke to him, he said to him that when he was sitting in the chair, he saw me being floated out of the hallway, which he would have been sitting facing the entry, our front door and back door at my parents' line up. So you sit at one end of the house, you can see straight through. He said that he saw me floating with what he called creatures, 2 or 3 creatures around me. And I was being floated through the hallway, and he thought that's my soul, and I'm dead, and I've been taken, and he'll never see me again. And it really, really affected him. And that's when my mum walked in the room, and my brother asked Bill asked some questions, and my brother translated to her in Arabic, and she said, "Oh yeah, when we were younger, we used to see flying plates, like flying saucers, flying plates all the time. But our parents used to tell us they're Israeli spy planes." And I was shocked because I never heard her talk about this stuff. And then she said, "I'll never forget this." Now we're talking 1964 in Lebanon. She said when Peter was 22 days old, and then for her to remember something like that, but never ever mention it, and then to mention it that during that interview, really blew me away. And I wish I had recorded it, because my mum's got dementia now and she's in a nursing home. And it's one thing that I really regret, that I didn't sit down and do a video interview with her and get it down. But it's documented when Bill did the research and that. But anyway, she said I was 22 days old. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. She was sitting down on the bed breastfeeding me. And at our house in Lebanon, you've got the glass windows and you've got the wooden shutters, which are louvered, and they're on the outside. And they were open. So anyone walking up to the window, looked through the glass, they could see. And she said she's sitting there breastfeeding me. And she saw what she said was an alien at the window. And it was milky white in color, with white hair down to its shoulders, wearing like a dark turtleneck top. She could see from the chest up. And she said it wasn't perving at her. She didn't feel scared or anything. And she calmly went to bed and woke up in the morning. She said she made the comment that what woman in 1964 in Lebanon sees a white person looking through a window and wouldn't freak out? But she fell asleep. Yeah, she fell asleep. And my uncle was one of the security guards. There are 2 security guards in the town. And she went in the morning and spoke to him about it and said, we live on the coast and we've got 2 cement factories. So we get a lot of ships coming in to the ports and pulling up, loading up, staying a couple of days. So you get a lot of tourists or visitors come and go. And she was wondering whether it was, Australian or Swiss or American, someone fairly almost albino. My uncle had a look, asked around. There was no ships docked in town. There was no foreigners in town. So she couldn't explain it, but she kept that with her most of her life, and only revealed it when probably, I'd say, early 2000 or something, when they did the interview with her. That really took, I was really shocked by that, because she's never ever mentioned it to me, although I've spoken about my experience in front of my family a number of times. She never brought it up. But
so what happened after that, Peter? What other experiences happened after that?
Well, the experience I remember after, well, my mum says when I was 22 days old, so obviously I don't remember anything about that. But later on, I was about 6.5 years old, I'd say. And we were playing on the road. This is in Lebanon again. We were playing on the road, and one of the kids said, let's go up on because we live on the coast, all the roofs in our town are flat. They're not tiled roofs. So you have a cubby house up there. They have vine leaves growing up there, and they make cubby houses out of them. So it was a house across the road, and there'd been some weird activity at that house where we were playing out the front of that house once, and there was one of the girls that lived there. She was studying for HSC, and she was sitting down on a chair, and she was rocking the chair as she was reading. And we were playing down on the road, and she was on the front porch. And then we heard this massive banging on their back door, like as if someone was using a ramrod, a ram pole, and just smashing their back door. So my dad was on holidays from Australia at the time. He was in Lebanon, and we went and called him, and he actually came out with a double-barrel shotgun and walked around the house. And some of the kids, the younger kids, went with my dad, and the older kids grabbed sticks and went around the other side. And as they went around the back of the house, the noise stopped, and we're wondering where it went. And then it started at the front door. It started banging the front door. So we all ran around to the front, and there was nothing. We couldn't see anything. So that house had some, weird activity happening there. And we were playing. So we ran up. As we're running up, someone said, last one up there is in. So we're running up, and I had my little cousin. She was about 1.5 years younger than me. She was running last, so I let her get in front of me. And as we ran up the stairs, it was second floor, so we ran up the stairs. And as you went off the landing onto the roof, there was a solid steel door that had a steel frame. And it was a heavy door, so when you pushed it open with its own weight, it'd come back at you, and it'd come back really quick to shut. So if you ran through the door, you're running through, you have to have your arms out in front of you to make sure this door doesn't knock you out. And I remember seeing 2 or 3 kids run through, and the door didn't come back, and I was expecting it to hit me as I went through. I thought, it's eventually going to come back, it's going to close. And it didn't, and it stayed open. So as I walked through, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, how come that door hasn't sprung back? And then all of a sudden I see all the kids, and there was probably 7 or 8 of us up there. And I see them all standing like mannequins, like they were frozen, took probably 3 or 4 steps onto the roof and just froze in their spot. And I thought that was a game we were playing, and I was in. So I walked around and tried to tickle some of them. I wanted to see their eyes, the crow's feet, or I just wanted to see something. I thought there'd be movement. And they were like statues. They were like dolls, dummies, just nothing, no expression, no movement. Just didn't even see the glow in their eyes. And I walked up to a guy, his name was George, and he was about 2 years older than us. So he was taller than me. I went up to tickle him under the throat. And as I looked up, I saw about 20 meters above us what was like an egg-shaped object. And at the time, my neighbor had a VW Beetle. And that's how I could describe it. It was about the same size as a VW Beetle. And the pointed end was at the top with the rounded end at the bottom. Imagine it on a 45-degree angle, and the glass in the front was dark tint, and I could see 2 figures inside sitting down as you would say a helicopter pilot when you look through the tinted glass. But I couldn't see any features. I couldn't tell you what color they were because it was just like a silhouette. But they were very thin and very tall. And the way they were sitting, it wasn't like our pilots would sit in a helicopter. They were sort of leaning forward and looking both of them were looking towards our direction. And I'm looking up at this thing. I never used the word UFO at the time. I didn't know what to think. I was just looking at this thing thinking, wow, that is cool. That was great. Now, I'd seen helicopters, even at 6 years old, 7 years old, I'd seen hundreds, if not thousands of helicopters over my time there, because there used to be a lot of Israeli helicopters flying over, and we're in the north of Lebanon, so we're about 15 minutes from Tripoli. And helicopters would fly over and they'd dump all this propaganda, and there'd be coloured papers. I didn't know how to read it at the time, but as kids, we'd just run around and try and gather as many different colours as we could. And it could have been maybe 10 different colours, and we try and get every colour. That was our game. We weren't interested in what information or propaganda they were trying to put out there. But I knew what a helicopter looked like. They flew low, they flew frequently, and I could tell you what was inside the helicopter with the doors. We grew up with them around us, so I knew what a helicopter looked like. This was no helicopter. So we come out in early 70s. We come out to Australia. I'm not even into the topic. I don't even think about it. And then the next thing that happens is the experience in 1988, which rocked my world, basically. And once I had that experience, I knew I linked my childhood experience to that. And I thought, I think something's going on here. So I actually, before I spoke to anyone, I spoke to a couple of psychologists and psychiatrists, and just wanted to know whether, you know, what is it me? Is it something other people reporting? I didn't have a clue. And I spoke to a psychologist from Queensland. Well, everybody I spoke to before him, as soon as I'd say, look, I felt there was a presence in the room and I saw something. Oh no, we don't deal with that. Hang up. Not even give you a bit of advice or try and point you in a direction. So when I spoke to this psychologist, he said, look, it sounds very similar to a lot of things I'm hearing with people who've had UFO experiences. Maybe you should look up a UFO group and have a chat to them. And at the time, UFO Research New South Wales hadn't formed yet. They had their inaugural meeting, and they were looking at naming their group. I went there with 2 female friends of mine, and that was the first time I was ever exposed to the UFO subject. And we ended up actually winning, I think we got 2 books because we named the group. Me and the 2 girls that were with me, ladies that were with me, we named the group, and that was the name that they picked. And I remember getting these books thinking, oh, interesting, 2 books, you know. And if you look around me now, there's like, I've got about 4,500 books on the topic. So I've done a fair bit of reading since then. But yeah, I got involved with the group, and over the years, over the time that I was involved with them, I learned a lot, and I started opening up to a lot of different things, where a lot of different opinions and a lot of different theories. But what I found was everybody was interested in looking at lights in the sky and reporting what happened in 1960 or 1950 or whatever. But no one wanted to touch the abduction topic, like alien abductions and that. And that was where I was coming from. That was, you know, that's what I experienced. So
I had
the opportunity to...
Sorry, I was going to say there was a real taboo around that at the time, because I got involved in '88.
There definitely was, yeah. There was a taboo, and it was like we're discrediting the topic or the subject if we brought abductions into it. And I suppose people were trying to, you know, prove that lights in the sky were UFOs, or, you know, things like that. And they didn't want to open a can of worms, which I could understand. But there was a something deeper happening that no one was looking at. And I had the opportunity to, when Bud Hopkins came out to Australia, I had the opportunity to have a meeting with him and interview him and have a chat to him. And my question to him was, can someone in my position who's had an experience be of use on a support group environment? Because we were looking at starting forming a support group for people who've had these experiences. And he said to me, you'll probably be, you know, in a good position to understand what other people are going through. So after having the meeting with him, myself and Jamie Leonardo decided we'll start the support group. And in 1993, in April 1993 actually, we formed the UFO Experience Support Association, and we had a lot of good people on board. We had like Frank Wilkes, Robert Marks, Matthew Favaloro, Beatrice Capello. We had a number of professional people involved with the group, which gave us a good platform to work with. And people started coming out of the woodworks with abduction type experiences. So everybody started taking note, and it just snowballed from there. And you know, 1993 was when we started the support group, but then 1992 was when I had my experience with the 2 females, and where the DNA comes into play.
Yeah,
and,
so tell us about that.
Well, look, my '88 experience, it changed my life. It really did. My 1992 experience confused me more than anything. You think when you have experiences, or you go through these things, you get answers, you get you sort of get a feel of what's going on, and it just blew me away. Having someone enter your home, just appear on your bed, and then disappear. That's hard to explain. And if I didn't have the DNA evidence, if I didn't have the hair samples, I don't think I would have gone public with it. I might have spoken to people about it, people I trusted, but I don't think I would ever have gone public with it. But 1992 was a pretty bad year for my family. We lost a few people, family friends, and my sister-in-law, which my oldest brother's wife. He's the one who was there when I had the experience in '88. She was murdered. It was murder-suicide. And so my family had been through a lot that year. And she was murdered in March 1992. And in February 1992, my fiance and I were sitting in the car. She was flying to Queensland. I was going to meet her there a week later. And it was actually February, Valentine's Day. We're sitting in the car. I had my back to the door. I was driving. I had my back to the door. She was sitting in the driver's seat. We're looking at each other talking. And then I stuck my head out the window and I saw this massive, like grapefruit-sized white, like hot white ball traveling across the sky from the northern direction to the east. And it got to the Southern Cross, and it's like there's 3 stars that can form a triangle, and it just stopped in one above one of them, and it started. What it did, it stopped, and then shot a beam of light, and it was a thick beam of light, a white beam of light, and then it appeared at 2 places at once, which to me it looked like a dumbbell. I mean, I used to train back then, and that's the only thing I related it to straight away. I thought, geez, it looks like dumbbells. And what it did, it shoot a beam of light, appear at 2 places, disappear from point A, shoot a beam of light, and it was at these 3 points of stars, which were in a triangle, and it was doing it so erratical that it was doing 90-degree angle. It was just like, I could not believe what I was seeing. So we got out of the car, both of us, and we're watching this thing, and I got a bit of cardboard and sort of folded it over just to, tunnel my vision a bit and focus. And my fiance at the time said to me, she said, it looks like a war with the stars, Star Wars. And I said to her, no, because I'm thinking beam of light, search light, search beam. I said, no, it might be looking for something. Now I realize that, okay, yeah, there's theories that UFOs travel where they, warp time and space, and they travel and can be 2 places at once, so on. But at the time, I didn't analyze it that way. I was just thinking, yeah, it's looking for something. But it did this for about, I'd say maybe 2 minutes. And I don't know how, no one else in Sydney, and I'm sure someone probably did see it, but I didn't hear them report it. But hundreds and thousands of people should have seen that. It was like 8 o'clock at night, nice clear night. There would have been people out and about. I just don't understand how the radio, wasn't inundated with people calling about that. So anyway, we watched it for a while, and then it just shot off at 1,000,000 miles an hour straight up. And 6 months later, I was a bit sick at the time. Got up in the morning, drove my wife to the station. We had just got married in 1990, so we're 2 years into our marriage. I drove her to the station at Regent's Park, and on the way, the further I got away from home, the sicker I got, and I was just pulling over, opening the car door and just vomiting, and it was repeated, and I don't know where it was coming from, but it was nonstop, and it wasn't food, it was just liquid. And the further I got from home, the sicker I got. Dropped her off. As I drove back home, the closer I got to home, the less sicker I felt. And I have a theory on that. I believe that it was an out-of-body thing, and the further I got away from my body, the sicker I got, and then the closer I got back to it, the better I felt. That's my theory now. But anyway, I walked through the door, closed it behind me. I was feeling sick, so I went straight back into bed. This is at 7 o'clock in the morning. This isn't at night where most abductions happen. I get into bed, put the quilt over me, and I'm thinking, I don't know why I'm this sick, but, you know, there was no reason for it. I wasn't feeling sick through the night. Anyway, I'm just lying there probably 5 minutes, and I felt like a dog or a cat jumped on the bed. I felt movement on the bed, and it was like someone just, or something sat on the bed. I felt a bit of weight. And we didn't have any pets at the time, so it caught my attention. I thought, what the hell is that? So as I sat up, I sit up, and there's this blonde female sitting on top of me, and completely naked, very, very attractive, humanoid in every way except facial features. And I sort of related a bit to Cher, the singer. She's got, you know, the large cheekbones, the longer face, longer nose. This female was very, very attractive, but she did have a longer nose, but not a big nose as such. It just really suited her features. Blonde, wispy hair, very, very thin hair, very frail looking hair. And it looked like it was being blown by wind, which I was in my room. There wasn't any wind. Perfect breasts. There was no gravity at work where she lived. I can guarantee you that much. And I didn't think of that at the time. Like, I wasn't thinking that. Now that I think about it, no, it's true. Like, I have to make that comment because where she lives, I don't think they have the gravity that they deal with gravity the way we do. So, but anyway, she was young, I guess, too. So anyway, she was sitting on top of me, and on the side of the bed, on the corner of the bed, was an Asian-looking female. And not being racist or anything, but I was never sexually attracted to Asian females, so I don't know why it would be Asian. And if someone wants to say it's a sexual fantasy, then I don't think it would have been an Asian female involved. But anyway, I'm freaking out now, thinking, what the hell is going on, you know? And as I sat up, as I started, now I'm going through this process. This took seconds. All that I'm telling you, I'm going through that. As I sat up, I saw an image of me. It was a transparent image of me, and I believe it was my soul or my astral body. And then, as I'm looking at this image of me, it's like, you know, transparent image, I could see the female on the other side of it. And then, as I sat up, I merged back into one. I become one again. And as soon as that happened, I felt a grab. She grabbed the back of my head with both her hands and pushed me to her left breast and buried my face into her breast. So I pushed away. Second time she did it again, I pushed away again. And the third time she buried my face in her breast, I couldn't push away. She was that strong that I couldn't push away from her. And I had my hands against her chest, and I was trying to push away, and I just couldn't. And my face is buried in her breast. And like I said before, I'm claustrophobic at the best of time. Like, you don't want to be in the lift with me when it breaks down. I don't think you like it very much. But anyway, I couldn't breathe, and my face is buried in her breast, and I couldn't breathe, and I panicked. So my reaction was, I didn't take a bite. People say, well, what type of person is he, you know, likes to bite people sexually? It wasn't anything like that. I just took a little nip. Like, I didn't even open my mouth. I just put my, you know, teeth and just took a little nip. And I was able to push away. I think it shocked her in a way. And as I pushed away, she looks over to the Asian female, and telepathically, this wasn't words I was hearing. This was I could feel it. It was more a feeling, a knowing. And she was saying to her, something's gone wrong. He's done this wrong. It isn't like the last time. There was something going wrong. And I was like, what last time? What are you talking about? You know? And I start coughing. I get this coughing fit. It was like acid was burning. Whatever I bit, I swallowed. I felt it. I felt a little bit of, look, it could have been a tablet. I'll get to that in a minute. It could have been some sort of, I don't know whether it was like a Viagra thing or something, because later on I had an erection for like 6 hours, which was really painful.
A bit of the nipple.
And sorry?
It could have been a bit of the nipple.
Well, I didn't see any flesh broken when I pushed back. I didn't see any blood. I didn't see any redness or I didn't see anything to indicate that I bit and caused damage, but I did swallow something. And as soon as it hit the back of my throat, it was burning like acid. It just, the more it sat there, the more it burnt, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And I had this coughing fit. So I'm looking down coughing and I'm hearing them communicate. And she's telling me things at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, how am I going to remember this? And I knew I would in a way, but I just thought, I'm not going to remember all of this. So I tried to just remember little things. And there was a couple of things mentioned about I've never spoken about this and I'm not ready to do so, but there were things spoken that she said about my future. And it was like 25 years down the track. And it's been so spot on that it freaks me out at times. But I've been separated for 3 years now, and I was actually told that at this time it had happened, and it happened exactly. It's not like I had something in my head and I played towards it. There was no way that was in play. I got told something, and then 25 years later it happened, and it blew me away. But anyway, there's a lot of communication going on, and then I'm looking down coffee, and I look up, and they're gone, vanished. So I get the urge to go into the bath, into the kitchen, have some water, have some Lebanese bread, and try to wash this thing down. And the more water I drank, the more it aggravated this effect and this acid burning thing. It was really, really uncomfortable. And I had the urge to go to the bathroom and pee, and walked into the bathroom. And just as I was about to pee, I felt like my penis had been slashed with razors. That's what it felt like. It was like, it was so bad. I had a look, and I noticed there were two hairs. One was like almost an S shape embedded into my penis. Like if you stuck your fingernail in your skin and moved it, you'd leave a mark. So there was one that was like an S, and one was sort of half wrapped around. And as I went to pull these out, take them off, I knew I connected them straight away to the female. I knew there was no reason any other reason that they would have been there. There was no reason for it whatsoever. And so I tried to peel them off, and it was the most excruciating pain I've ever been in. Like I was crying, I was in tears, trying to get these things off. It was like I was actually slashing my private part with a razor as I did it. It was that painful. And anyway, I eventually removed them through a lot of tears. And I went and stuck them in a bag, a sandwich bag actually, folded it over, taped it, and put a note on it. 2 females, the day, time. And I just put that away, and I thought, something happened. You never know. One day I could use this. It could be evidence. But I never thought, I didn't want to talk about it publicly. I was talking about my 88 experience, and I was happy to do that. But I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to bring this up. It was a different can of worms altogether. I believe it was about 1996. Professor Mack came out. John Mack came out to Australia, and he came out and interviewed me and did a hypnotherapy session with me and so on, and organised a workshop which we held at the Pacific Hotel, International Pacific Hotel in Bankstown. And he was blown away at the venue, because he said he usually goes into dark lanes and alleys and down basements, and it's all really hidden in America. They're not out there in the public about it. And we did it in a really nice hotel. So anyway, a few weeks later, I had 2 female TV producers come out. They were going to do a documentary for Channel 7. And they're talking to me, and they wanted one of the T-shirts that has the many faces of an alien. They wanted to give to the producer at Channel 7 the T-shirt that has many faces of an alien, and they're all the same impression. So they thought it was funny, and they wanted one of those. And one of them threw a remark out and said, "You know what, Peter? If this was really happening to people, there should be some physical evidence. It should be like a sexual assault case. There should be some physical evidence left behind." And I said, "You want evidence? I'll show you evidence." I came into my office, took out the bag, went out there. Now, Bill Chalker was here at the time. When I first got into the field, I didn't like Bill Chalker at all. Everyone told me he's a CIA agent, he's a government operative. And I thought he was against everything I stood for, everything that I was trying to do. So I didn't like him at all. he'd turn up to UFO research meetings, and I wouldn't even sell him a raffle ticket when we were selling raffle tickets. I'd avoid him. I just would not talk to him. And over the time, over a couple of years, I realized that the guy's credible. I don't think he's a CIA agent. I mean, he's working in security now with me. And, you know, if he had government links, I think he'd be retired in a nice place somewhere. But anyway, so Bill Chalker happened to be here that day because it was a TV thing that we were looking at, and he was going to contribute towards it. So when I brought out the bag with the 2 hairs in it, he'd never heard about it. He'd never even seen them. So the only person that had seen them prior to that was John Mack and Dominique, his partner at the time. I showed it to them and talked to John about that experience. Anyway, Bill straight away, he said to me, "Why haven't you told me about this? Where's this been?" You know, I said, "Mate, it's a can of worms I really don't want to get into, but they want evidence. I'll give them evidence." Now, 6 years goes by, and I get a phone call from Bill one night, and he says to me, "I've got some biochemists that work for CSIRO, and they're willing to test. They think if there's something to this abduction stuff, there should be evidence." And I told them, "We do have a bit of evidence. They're willing to test it. Are you willing to get your hairs tested?" Without a hesitation, I said, "Yep, let's do it." For some reason, I tend to know when's the right time to go and do something. Like, I've had 3 movie offers now, and I've held back on them. I just don't feel right about it. And if they're meant to happen, it'll happen. But I know other people tell me, "You should, you're crazy, you know, opportunities don't come too often." But there's something about the timing with me, and I just let it fall into place when it needs to, and it seems to fall into the right place. So when he put the offer to me, I said, "Yep, take that." Now, I took a risk because I was giving them the hair samples. I was giving them both samples. I could never see them again. They could damage them, destroy them, doing the testing. I've had a guy call me, and he said that if I give him 2 millimeters of the hair, he can tell me what they eat, but they'll destroy the hair sample. And to be honest with you, I really don't care what they eat. I don't want to destroy the hair sample, and I don't have. I've still got a piece of the hair, and a lot of people ask me that, and they're always making the comment, "Oh, I bet you don't have the hair anymore." And I say, "Yes, I do." So there's a piece of the hair there. But anyway, when I handed him the sample, he came over, took a sample. He did it all legitimately. You know, we signed a contract, and just to say that the hair will always belong to me. I didn't want to lose it. I didn't want anyone claiming it and keeping it. And I didn't have the hair for 10 years from that time of the initial testing till the time I got it back. It was 10 years. And anyway, they did their DNA analysis of the hair, and it was a 2-stage thing where they did the second one was a nuclear DNA to it component. And when they did the first testing, one of the scientists, now look, I kept the scientist identity secret for like over 10 years, and a lot of people in the field were telling me to name him because it'll, you know, give my case more credibility. But for me, it was a trust thing. This person asked me to keep his identity secret, and I did that for 10 years. And he came out one day, came to a meeting at my house. There was about 50, 60 people here, and a lot of the doubters, a lot of the people who claimed that Bill Chalker did the analysis of the hair in his backyard shed on a newspaper, realized that this guy has written a number of books. And actually, it's Dr. Horace Drew. He's well known in the UFO field now. He's into the crop circle thing. But I could have boosted my case and, you know, ran with that early on, but I kept that for 10 years. I shut my mouth about that and kept my word to him that I wouldn't divulge his identity. And now that everybody knows who he is, they realize that, yeah, someone credible did do the testing on the hair, and that it was done properly, and it was done in a proper lab. Well, what they found was the root of the hair had blonde, Scandinavian-looking DNA, Celtic more, like reddish hair, blue eyes, fair-skinned, tall, Scandinavian-looking. And the shaft of the hair had the rarest Chinese mitochondrial DNA. Now, as you know, any hair, yours, mine, it'd have one DNA. It'd be just the one DNA right through it. but this tended to have two DNAs. And what they were interested in is that it actually supported, look, in 1993, there was a panel of about 12 professionals who sat down, and it happened at Jamie Leonardo's place when he was living in Petersham, sat down across the table from me and just questioned me for hours and hours and took notes and everything. And we talked about all of this stuff, and it took a long time before this testing came out and supported my case. But what impressed these people who were doing the research was I had already years ago mentioned a blonde female and an Asian female, and then here's the hair supporting my claim. It had blonde DNA in the root, and it had the Chinese rarest DNA in the shaft. So it supported my story in that there was an Asian and a blonde female there. But how the DNA is, it's like there's cloning involved. And I remember telling these experts when they were questioning me that I didn't see a belly button on the blonde. And I didn't. She was straddling me and I'm looking at her and I didn't see a belly button on her. And I didn't register with me back then. But 1993 was the time Dolly the sheep, I think, was cloned. And that's when people was talking about cloning. And it was, a topic that was really, we were in the infancy stage of it. And we were just basically, learning the crawl at the time. And even now, we're just barely touching the DNA thing. But it started, I think it got people thinking when, basically years earlier, I say I don't see a belly button on this female. And then when we're talking about cloning and that, we know that they don't have belly buttons. They're not born like you and I. So that even impressed me, to be honest. Like I was like, wow, that's something really interesting in that. I'm glad I noted that too. When you're looking at something and it's blowing your mind away and it's in your bedroom and it's in the morning and you don't expect it, you don't get the details. And I probably missed a lot of details, but I did know she didn't have a belly button. And so the case got a little bit more interesting. And then they did a second round of testing, and it was the nuclear aspect to it. And they found a CCR5 gene deletion, which is linked to not being susceptible to catching sexually transmitted diseases. And I'd say if you were going to, and I remember talking to this panel of experts and telling them, I believe that these females were made for a purpose, for a reason. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, I think they're made to produce. And I wasn't thinking at the time they were cloned to produce, but I just said that. I said, I think they're made to produce. And I think that's exactly what they are. That's their job, basically. And anyway, I sat down with Dr. Horace Drew and Bill, and we talked about, I got questioned. I mean, they took hair samples from me, they took hair samples from Vivian at the time, and tested those hairs, and it didn't match the hairs that we had. It just started to snowball, and I had no choice but to go public with the case and start talking about it. But as I said before, if I didn't have the DNA to back me, I definitely wouldn't have gone public with it. I would have just spoken to a number of people that are close to me about it, and that would have been it. So I'm probably fortunate, and I've got to say, since my case, we've had 3 or 4 cases where, I know there's one case in particular where a guy contacted me, and then he came and met me at my workplace at the time. He was that desperate. And I was working at a club, and he actually came and met me during my break. His name is Christian, and he produces movies and that. And he's one of the guys who has offered to do a movie about my case. But he actually reports seeing a blonde female and an Asian female, and then there was a hair sample involved. He drops the hair sample and then goes back and retrieves it. And we tested the hair. Not myself. Dr. Horace Drew and his team tested the hair, and it just came back as a I think it matched his partner's hair or something. So I'm not saying he didn't have the experience, but maybe when he dropped the hair, he went and picked up another one. Once you lose that chain of evidence, that connection, you dropped it, and you know, who knows. There's been another case similar where someone also says that they had a hair on their penis after an experience, but this person thinks it was put there because it was tied like a bow, and he thought his girlfriend might have done it through the night and was playing a joke on him. And when he questioned her about it, she said, no way, she didn't do anything like that. He left that hair on the wash basin in the bathroom, went back later to retrieve it, and when they tested the hair, it matched a family member's. So I don't know what to make of that, but I wish there was another 50, 100 hair samples that we've tested, or that the team have tested, and backs up my story. But unfortunately, at this stage, it's a rare one, and I would love people. I would love people all around the world to hear this and start sending samples to be tested to wherever labs in the world. I'm not trying to drum up business for these guys, but they seem to have done a good job with my case, and I'm really appreciative that someone of their caliber took the time to actually delve into this field and do some testing. Now, there's been some funding due to my case. There's been some funding, and substantial funding, and some of that funding went towards supporting that lab that did the testing. And I believe there was something like $50,000 in equipment bought, DNA equipment, so they could do more testing if cases came up. 3 months, 6 months later, that equipment was obsolete. It was useless because DNA was moving so rapidly at the, but to be honest with you personally, that 50 grand, I could have used it towards a lot better means where to educate the public and probably hold conferences for free where people can just attend. That's my thing. That's where I like to get the word out that way. But yeah, they set up the lab and they were ready for numerous samples to be tested, and it didn't pan out that way.
Peter, can I ask you a question? Now that you sort of, all these years later, and you look back on your experiences, how do you feel about it all?
Look, in a way, I feel blessed to have had the experiences, because it did change my life and change me for the better. But in saying that, work-wise, job-related, it's been a bit of a hindrance. When I went public with this, I worked for myself, so I didn't care what anyone thought. I didn't have children at the time, so I didn't care. It was just Peter. It was just me. So if anybody attacked me, they attacked just me personally. Having kids played a big role. I mean, my kids, my son in particular, got bullied at school a lot because of this, and that really hurt me because it wasn't his thing, and that's the one thing I've tried to keep my kids really shielded or protected in this whole thing. I know a lot of people out there will tell you, they'll talk about their kids being half alien, or they've got alien DNA or whatever. My kids have had experiences, and I'll leave it at that. It's something that I don't, if they're not ready to do it themselves, I'm not here to boost my case by telling people what, my kids have had experiences or what type of experiences they've had. Hopefully, I hope that one day, my son in particular, I hope that one day he can look into that. But work-wise, now that I work in the security industry, I work with a lot of. Look, I might sound arrogant or ignorant in saying this, but I'm going to say it. I work with a lot of people who, some of them aren't the most intelligent people on the planet, and they have a narrow view of the world, and a lot of them have religious things that limit how they think. And you know, there's a lot of backstabbing that goes on and a lot of innuendo and rumours and crap. But you know what? The ones I have respect for are the ones that walk up to me and say, Peter, I don't believe in this topic, but I believe you because I know you. And the people that know me, they know I don't have, what reason would I have to make up a story like this? I mean, I haven't written the book. People have actually said, oh, he's written the book. And I didn't write the book. Bill Chalker did. I didn't get 1 cent, not one dime out of the book. I've never made money out of the UFO topic. If anything, it's cost me thousands and thousands. As you know, I don't have to explain it to you. You know, it costs you. No one in the UFO field can make money out of it and live a luxurious lifestyle.
No.
It doesn't happen that way. No, you know that.
We wish.
Yeah, exactly. We all wish. But yeah, it's annoying. You know, having someone who hasn't looked into my case, who hasn't looked into any case in particular, and they can make a comment and they can ridicule you and they can, but that's them. I really don't care. As I said, I have a lot of respect for the people who come up to me and actually tell me that, you know, I don't believe in this, but I believe you. And most of them will ask for a copy of the book, or they'll start looking at stuff on the internet. And I've had guys walk up in front of a group of people and go, hey, Peter, what's this thing with the UFOs, you know? And I go, look, if you want to talk about it, we can do it later. But what you're doing in front of everyone, it's just, you know, it's like you're showing off or you've been. And they'll walk up to me later and I'll say, look, mate, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude or anything, but my mother told me when I was this age, had an experience, you know, and they'll come out with a full-on story, you know, whether it was a sighting or an abduction. And I'll, you know, my question to them is, why would you walk up in a group of people and try and be a smart ass? You know, why wouldn't you grab me on the side and just say, I need to talk to you about something that my mum told me about? And it's just this macho thing, I guess, you know, among the boys, you know, you've got to be the, you know, the funny one. But I find that a lot of people, whether they believe in the topic or not, believe my story. They know me. They know me.
Well, we certainly appreciate you telling your story. That's for sure.
Thank you.
It's been a while since you've spoken publicly, is it? I think. Been a while.
2 years ago, I think, was in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Was it last year? Last year, I think, was in Melbourne.
So I'm sure people will appreciate it.
Yeah, I haven't been very active in the UFO field of late, and it's got to do a lot with the work that I do. And I mean, I until May this year, I stepped down, but I was at the Opera House, and I've been there over a period of 7 years. And you know, I've just sometimes I've got to put the UFO stuff on the back burner.
Yeah, we do.
Because, yeah.
You've got to live a life.
You got to work, and you got to, you know, have a reputation. And look, and everyone that I work with knows. So people at the Opera House knew, the hierarchy there knew, management, everyone, and you know, they respected me enough because they know that when I conduct myself, I'm a head supervisor, and I used to run all their outdoor events there. I used to manage, you know, up to 100 guards at a time. So it's not like, oh, Peter Khoury's had UFO experience, he's crazy, that's it. No, I was the lead guy on the team. The respect was there, so I wouldn't say I was disrespected because of my experience. But yeah, there are those innuendos, and you know, people make comments and that, and I would prefer people to look at the information, look at the evidence, like there's a lot of it on the internet, and there's a book about it. Have a read through it, and then if you've got any questions, I'm happy to sit down with you and talk about it. But I've got no time for people who are just armchair debunkers, don't look at a case, don't research anything, and just sit back and just dismiss everything because they don't believe in it. Yet most of these people believe in the Bible, and they believe it literally, and they live their lives by it. And you know, I don't live my life like that. You know, I've got different beliefs.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate that, and then hearing you reflect on that and tell your story, because there's a whole generation out there of people who haven't heard your experiences. So we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you very much,
Welcome,
Peter.
and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Peter. Thanks so much.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks.